I mean, I'm not saying that, I can say it.
Welcome, Epic Understanding family. I have somebody good for you today. Now, you never know who you're going to meet in these LinkedIn streets, but I'm really happy that I met this gentleman. His name is Marchello Arcelay. And if you look at his profile, you'll think, okay, he is in the recycling business and all of this kind of jazz. But then if you follow him, you're like, pow, bam, boom. He's into tech. He's into lunch and learns. He is a relationship king. I mean, he is all over the board. So I could not believe how powerful he was and all that he was doing. And so there is just a lot of depth to him. I know you're going to love him. I'm going to tell you something that's funny. So we're having this interview, and we're supposed to be talking about relationships. He's busy building relationships while we're talking about relationships. So anyway, he is about to jump on. I think it's awesome. How you doing, Mr. Marcello
Hey, how
Arcelay?
are you? How you doing today?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Were you in one of your favorite places?
Well, not this time. This time. I'm picking up some items for a new home of mine, and I was at one of these furnishing buildings or retail places picking up some different items to adorn my home with. So, but yeah,
Well,
I was
look,
not at Costco. I was not at Costco. I know everybody loves.
yeah, I know you love Costco. So,
Yeah.
Lee says Marcello sounds well accomplished. He is. You know what? You used to be a photographer, right?
Yeah, that's correct. When I lived in New York City, I was the staff photographer for the United Nations, and one of. And so whenever they had delegates that came in from all over the country or the world for that matter, I would cover their briefings at the United Nations, and also at times when they were traveling throughout the country, or not even the country, the city in New York, I would shadow them for that matter. I did freelance photography in New York City. So if there was, let's say, maybe a West Indian Day parade, a different event that was that I could cover and submit my photographs to the local publications, I did that as well.
That is amazing. Amazing. Now, will you get in trouble for driving with your light on because I gotta see you. The audience wants to see your
Oh,
awesomeness.
yeah, you're right. I'll bring on the light in a moment. Let me bring my vehicle around. Someone's gonna be helping me putting some stuff in my vehicle. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. So go right ahead. So now, mind you, I'm actually excited to sit down, virtually, I guess, and talk to you about different ways how to cultivate and also manage relationships. That's the key thing. Because at the end of the day,
Right.
a lot of folks think about like what we do on LinkedIn. We get a person, we add them to our thing, but then what happens is that we don't actually keep that relationship going. And then at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, then you wonder what happened. You know what I mean? So that's the key. So I think that the better part to answer that is that acquiring individuals is one thing, but then afterwards finding some commonality and how you
Mm-hmm.
can actually continue that relationship, because it's a two-way conversation. It has to be mutually beneficial for both parties to want to continue. Because yeah, we might be in the same industry, but if I don't like you, essentially, let's just keep it real simple, then
Yeah.
you're not gonna return someone's call. You're not gonna respond to their text. So it's not gonna work out. So that's the key thing. And mind you, it's really no I feel that at the end of the day, being genuine and actually trying to find ways how you can help them is the simplest way how to cultivate that relationship.
So
Be
I mean,
curious.
I agree, but I gotta slow you down. I gotta slow you
Sure.
down because I
I,
gotta tell them. I mean,
Go
you
ahead. I'm sorry.
are
I was too excited, but go ahead.
you're a brand ambassador.
Thank
Come
you.
on, let's go through what you're doing. You you're a brand ambassador for a lot of tech companies.
Hmm.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, you're right
you
about that. Right about that. Yeah.
yeah, see, you know what? I listen to you too much. I listen to you not too much, because we've had a family, we've had a lot of these conversations offline. And so when he's talking, I listen to him. I think, what do you have, like you also have like a Roomba vac or something like that they sent to you.
Yeah, I did work with companies like Roomba and iRobot, and they'll send me gadgets. So using that as an example, I've proven to companies like iRobot that partnering with me can help them increase their growth organically. So, for instance, they'll provide gadgets like a robot, and as I'm entertaining for that matter, or interacting with colleagues or even customers, I'll share my experience with the gadgets. Now,
Hmm.
the way they determine that we actually this relationship is mutually beneficial is because they know their saturation in a specific market. So
Hmm.
after providing said gadget to me, they actually see the growth in the marketplace, and this is how I'm able to leverage those relationships with these organizations to explore other partnerships with other companies as well, such as BlackBerry, Sony, Sonos, just to name a few.
But yeah, how many phones do you have,
Well,
Marcella?
right now I'm carrying, three. I have three that I carry with me right now. But yeah,
But
I do. Yeah, go ahead.
But you have all these phones that these companies have sent you. You just got you have all this free stuff. What is that called? Swag? You got all this.
Yeah, I got two right over here. As I'm with you on the phone, with you. And I think I have another one there. Mind you, it's a great benefit to have all the swag, and you're able to try them out, and other people see you use it, and you're able to provide your insight of how you use the devices on a real
As a
life.
matter of fact, yeah, you had one of those fold up phones. I don't even know if that's one of your favorite phones, but you had one of
It
those
is.
fold up phones before anybody had a fold up phone.
Yes, I have. Yeah, I mean, virtually every single fold-up phone I have. I mean, the Microsoft one, the what is the other one? The Samsung one. I mean, yeah, it's a nice to have, but I see like those relationships with these companies. I really go into it seriously, and I really want to understand the devices um, really well to the point that when people reach out to me and ask me, so why should I get this device?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, think about when you're test driving a gadget when you go to your local Best Buy and you're only really spending
Mm-hmm.
a few moments using it because you're not really gonna sit down and make calls and browse the web, and but I could give you the experience of that how to use it. I
Mm-hmm.
typically ask folks when they ask me said question like, okay, so how's it using a foldable phone? Why should I get it? My first question is, how do you use your phone? How do you use the device? I want to get to
Mm-hmm.
know the individuals. Mind you, that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, which is technology. One thing
Mm-hmm.
that I'm extremely passionate about, which you mentioned in the beginning of the show, is recycling and waste and sustainability and finding ways to help companies and individuals to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate ways to do their part to make sure that we have a country, a world to to provide for our family and our children down the road. So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about as well. So we could, if you like, we could go into that or discuss about approaches how to manage relationships.
Look, I wanted to really, I just wanted people to know about you because you're not just a one note wonder. You are a multifaceted guy. And the reason why I brought up some of the things that you've been able to get just from your relationships, because it's not about getting stuff. It's just that it's evidence of the value that you've been able to bring,
Hmm.
you know? And so, really, that's why I brought that up. So, Marcello, what is your 9 to 5?
Good question. Yeah. So my 9 to 5. I'm a waste stream analyst for a major waste and recycling company here in the United States,
Mhm.
and I work with medium to Fortune 500 companies to either reduce their waste production by dissecting their approach and finding ways how I can help them streamline their process. Or
Mhm.
I might work with companies such as Coke or Amazon to implement solutions that can meet their sustainability initiatives. So, for instance, they might come to me and ask me, Marcello, I'm interested in reducing how much cardboard we are throwing away by X percent. What
Mhm.
that we could do? So I will literally go in there and do a waste assessment, and it will take me either a day or two, depending on the complexity of the facility, and
Mhm.
I'll make recommendations on how to change their processes and ultimately, meet those metrics. Sometimes it could impact their workflow, and it might even slow them down. But if they're passionate about why I'm there, it would
Mhm.
these changes will resonate.
Okay, that is awesome. And so I want to highlight you get told no a lot.
That's correct.
So, but that doesn't stop you.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I expect to hear no's, meaning that, for instance, if I don't hear no's, then chances are I'm not doing my job right. The other thing you got to consider is when I'm interacting with individuals, I'm not wanting them to just tell me yes, 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 yes. I mean, that's not a
Mhm.
conversation. If anything, that's really more of a transactional experience. My goal every time I meet with someone in my 9 to 5, quite frankly, is to disqualify them. Meaning that I want to make sure that this is a good fit for us, mutually beneficial, and it's a holistic way to approach it. It has a lot of facets. I mean, we're talking about performance, making sure that the services that we provide are in line with the company's needs and views. Uh,
Mhm.
Also, sustainability, making sure that our approach is in line with their sustainability initiatives. And then lastly, price. We want to make sure that it makes sense to them as well to invest in our organization. And we take steps to make sure that that is a good fit. So the questions that I generally ask my clients challenge the way they think. And that's something that sometimes it does make them get uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
that approach that I have with clients, quite frankly, I naturally incorporate even in my personal life, because I usually don't just take what someone says uh, for face value. I might ask a question like, why? Why is that? Tell me more about that. Are you okay
Mhm.
with that? Does that make sense? Why is it this way? You know,
Mhm.
because if you start asking those kind of questions, then you can find where you could either uncover an area that their business is leaking, and you could actually provide a solution. Or if they're not even aware of it, oh, but hey, this is another thing to add to that. If you're asking these questions and the individual you're speaking to cannot answer them concisely and succinctly, chances are
Uh-huh.
you have the
Okay, so chances are you have the wrong individual. Now, you have a couple of really good techniques for getting to the right individual. Um, let's throw that in.
so. Give me an example. Like, what do you mean by that? Give me an example.
So I know that you have a technique for leveling up the contact. So you often send emails out right before the holiday so that you can expand your web of contacts within a particular
Ah,
organization. I'm a listener, man.
mhm.
I'm a listener.
Yeah,
So
I remember.
go ahead, tell us about that.
Well, one thing if you're talking about is the way that I stay in contact with my clients. So I'll send um, like correspondence via electronic mail, and
Uh-huh.
specific to the holiday, or it could be maybe focused around um, persons, individuals, holidays or anniversaries, or even
Mm-hmm.
that matter. So what I'll do is that after meeting you, I'll find out, as we're having our casual conversation, I'll understand the things that you're passionate about. I'll find out your anniversary. And mind you, I'm not gonna. These are not questions that I'm asking you in our first meeting. These things will just happen organically. And as these information comes, I'm aware of it. I take note. So for
Okay.
using what you just said about the holiday, uh, I'll send notifications or I'll send out emails. Hey, I wish you have a great Christmas or Merry New Year. But rather than being that generic message that we all get from everyone, we all get the same email from everyone. I make an effort to personalize it. So,
Okay.
hey, yeah, I know that your anniversary is coming up. I know that you're gonna have this is gonna be a great Christmas because your 21st, 25th anniversary is coming up next month. And what are your plans? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sending you the generic Christmas, Happy Merry Christmas. I want to ask you. I remember we talked about your anniversary. What are your plans for that for next month? And then
Mm-hmm.
if we haven't talked in 3, 4, 5 months, then if if they don't remember me, let's get real. Maybe I'm not that remarkable. They'll say, "Huh, okay, then this guy I must have had a great conversation. He remembers that." Or if they remember me, like it might touch them in a certain spot, and they're like, "Wow, this guy actually did remember."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't have a chance to do business, then they that might rekindle the opportunity. Or if we're already doing business, it just further strengthens their decision to go with me. Now, the other thing, the benefit of doing that, sending those notifications during the holidays or even monumental occasions, is that at times individuals are off on holidays, and you'll see those out of box messages come back, saying, "Hey, I'm going to be off on the holidays. If you have immediate needs, contact my boss." Ultimately, the person I should be talking to the first place sometimes. So I'll give
Yeah.
their number, email address for that matter. So at that point, I can actually reach out to them on LinkedIn and connect and say, "Hey, I understand that Peter off at a holiday. I wish that you have a Merry Christmas and hopefully we have an opportunity to do business next year." So now I can touch base with them. Guess what? Now when the holidays are over and I visit that customer, I can say, "Hey, is let's say Peter's boss is Jackie. Hey, is Jackie here?" And then I can introduce myself to Jackie, not necessarily sidestep Peter, but now I know who I really need to talk to, and I can take the conversation. And then, like what you said, I can level up at that point within the organization. Then multiply that by how many companies or individuals you might have targeted when you send that blast.
So that's amazing. We have a friend of ours out there in the audience. He said that's the old holiday trick. So is that really an old holiday trick? Is that popular? Where did you pick that up at?
Well, I started doing that for, gosh, I mean, I'm in sales for over 20 years. I've been doing that for a very long time. But what I do outside of the email, the new trick is, and I don't want to say trick, but the new approach is creating a video. Obviously, at this point, it's going to be a generic video, but it's going to be the video that you just created and you're wishing them a happy holiday, and then creating an actual GIF from that image or from the video, which is like a moving image, and put that
Hmm.
in the email. So when the person opens the email, that video plays maybe 1, 2, 3 seconds. So that could draw the eye to that image and ultimately increase the probability of them clicking that video and listening to your message. And ultimately, then when they click it, then at that point, if you have anything that notifies you that they viewed the video, you could actually follow up with them saying, "I noticed you clicked the video," whatever follow up cadence you might have. But yeah, I think outside of the old holiday trick is creating, putting some sort of either a static image or a GIF, something to draw their attention to move that conversation elsewhere. And if you've written an article like I do occasionally during the holidays, or even just throughout the year, put a link to an article for that matter. So in this case, given that my 9 to 5 is in sustainability, I I will write an article talking about how to be more sustainable during the holidays. So I will have an article in the email as well, along with the video. So I'm trying to provide.
Okay, that's great. So hold on, I want you to know your screen is completely black. We cannot see you whatsoever. Can you pull over in some light because you're giving so much value? I don't want people to miss out on you.
Sure, I'll do that. Give me one moment. Did we have any questions from the audience in the meantime, or
Um,
any comments?
no, they're just kind of commenting on what you're saying. What I do want to talk about is this: you 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 send out this holiday email, and sometimes you write a particular article I to catch their interest. But something else that you do that is really neat is that you look at posts that they have, and then you try to answer their questions in a preemptive way. That's something else that you told me about. So that you're actively looking to answer their questions and solve their problems,
Uh,
even when they're not your customers.
I get your point. Yeah. So to answer what you're saying, and I'll pull over now. What you're saying, it jogs in memory. I know what you mean. So what happens is, let's say, for instance, I would know. Um, let's use like Coca-Cola for example. Um, I would know generally companies like them what their usual pain points might be. So I will write articles that could address or answer the usual pain points that these companies might be having, or individuals. So, for instance,
Okay.
let me give an example, like an and safety, um, environmental and health and safety person. Their pain points might be reducing their carbon footprint or safety within their organization. So, like the team members may not be doing the right thing. So, let's say, for instance, constant education, providing education for the team members. So I could actually I could write an article that could help them cultivate or create a culture within an organization that
Mm-hmm.
education could be something that they look forward to. So I write articles about, let's say, the title might say is that it might be it might be in the wintertime and say, okay, it's getting cold inside. Are folks using the heaters? And then my article could be talking about the safety concerns that space heaters have
Mm-hmm.
within an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a huge area of concern for EHS individuals because in corporate America, before we had a pandemic, people usually have these space heaters underneath their desk
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
catch fire. And they usually try to sneak it in. So I'll write an article to try to find it easier for them to communicate this message, and maybe even rather than actually communicating a message, just quickly provide a sentence or two and use my article as education.
Ah. So you're equipping them. You're equipping them.
I already
So
know.
I got it. That's a good one. I really like that. So you're writing these articles and you're sending out these emails, and you get the person that you really need to talk to. Let's say you've been talking to Bob, and now you got his boss's information. You got Dave's information, right? How do you make sure that Bob doesn't feel looked over? What do you do with that?
Oh, that's not going to be an issue at this point. It's pretty easy. I mean, you come by and you're talking to, let's say it's Jackie, and I say, hey Jackie, I understand that you work with Bob at this location, and I understand you guys are passionate about recycling. I worked with Bob in the past on finding ways how we could partner. Curious to know if you could share with me the process that you and Bob go about interviewing and partnering with future vendors. Is that something that you could share with me? So I'm including Bob, and ultimately she could probably share with me the process of onboarding a vendor. After they share that information with me, if the opportunity presents itself, I might say, "Well, do you mind if I share our process on onboarding companies like yourself?" Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then at that point, we might determine if there's an opportunity for us to explore a partnership. If there's an immediate, if they're not unhappy with if they're unhappy with the vendor, if their contract is coming up for renewal, or quite frankly, they want to explore different ways to reduce their carbon footprint, then we can explore that after we know each other's process. But
Okay.
I would never put Bob to the side. I would still include him, but until Jackie says, "Well, you know, Bob, he manages, or he's like my pit bull, or he's my gatekeeper." Once that's
Mhm.
determined, then I would deal with her directly if that's, you know, if that's acceptable. You know what I mean?
So basically, I'm just trying to get this delicate situation right because you know that some people can be a little bit iffy about that when all of a sudden you're talking to their boss, right?
Yeah.
And you used to be talking to them. So you send them an email, you get their boss's you get their boss's information. Are you CCing the, are you CCing Bob along with Dave? I'm trying to get down what exactly happened so that you don't ruin your chances, because if you do that wrong, you can create a little bit of funk.
Well, mind you, as I said earlier, I understand. I'm asking them about their process, and at that
Okay.
I'm understanding how they onboard vendors. So
Mhm.
once they have shared that with me, anything afterwards is going to be in line of what they deem acceptable. So
Okay.
no one's going to be slighted after that. So that's the key thing.
Okay.
Understanding their approach and complementing it allows to everyone that needs to be a part of the decision to be.
Mhm. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I also want to go this direction because I know the helper you are. One thing that you do is if somebody who's, not in your direct, I don't know, territory, if they need help, you're helping.
Yeah, funny you bring that up because I'm thinking about it goes either way. I'll have a client of mine, most recently out of Marietta, Georgia. They mentioned to me, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, Marcello, I'm not sure if you can help me out, but I just purchased an apartment community in
Uh-huh.
Denver, Colorado, and I can never pronounce that state well, but you get the idea. And and I'm curious to know if you could help me out. So rather than me saying, "Well, yeah, call the 1-800 number, and I'm sure they'll guide you through it," no, I'll do the due diligence. I want to keep them within our organization because I want them to continue having that same experience. That's how
Okay.
I see it. I see working with me as an experience. So I reach out to the local representative in that city and let them know
Mhm.
exactly what's happening, and if they can help me to, help them with the solution that they need at that location. And I set up the entire meeting. I called the rep. I set up the time and date. So when my customer arrived and landed in their city, all he needed to do was he knew exactly what time the appointment was, and he was good to go. Other scenarios are I have customers or employees reach out to me, mainly because there's chatter within the organization saying, well, Marcello manages to do X. You may want to reach out to him. Uh, However, you'll get those questions, and I did most recently ask me, well, Marcello, can you give me tips for a new rep onboarding? That's a bit broad. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
what tips to give? What I mean? Is it follow up tips? Is it cold calling tips? Qualify? It's such a broad, thing. So my follow up question was either have the person call me and we can have a candid conversation and understand or uncover the areas that they might have some apprehension in, and let's just eat the elephant one bite at a time rather than
Mhm.
eat it all at one same time. So focus on that. And that was my recommendation. And then we sat down, we talked, and I got to know the person better. And I asked her, like, what's your biggest trepidation when you get in that vehicle and you drive to your first location and you knock on someone's door and you introduce yourself? What is the biggest problem or the biggest hurdle you have? And the thing that she said was, well, they're gonna kick me out. They're gonna slam the door. They're not gonna want to do business with me. They don't know me from Jack. I get that.
Mhm.
But my response to her was, remember this. Yes, we are in sales. Yes,
Mhm.
we want to see if we could help the company. But that's the key thing. Listen to what I just said. Help. Don't go in there trying to convince, try to sell. try to see if you can help. And the question
Mhm.
that you ask can lead you down that path.
Mhm.
So you should not feel embarrassed. You should not feel uncomfortable. You should feel proud that you're there to see if you can help what they're doing now, because there's some individuals and organizations that they're complacent, but they don't want to go through the process to pick up the phone, vet different companies to determine
Mhm.
if they want to make a change. If you address that for them by showing up, asking the right questions, and determining if you could be a good fit, you will be a breath of fresh air. And when I told her to think in that fashion, she said, "Well, so if I understand you correctly, Marcello, you're telling me that ultimately I need to choose my attitude and change my approach on sales." I said,
Mhm. There you go. Wait a minute. They say that you're too handsome to be this smart. Yeah.
"Well, thank you. I appreciate that." Well, I appreciate the compliment.
There you go. There you go. So let's go back to the internal, because sometimes when you're helping, right, you're helping somebody else's customer. They're all for your company, but you're helping somebody else's customer, and they're like, hey, Marcello, he's bogarting my people. How does that work? What's that dynamic like?
Well, it's funny. I got another scenario just like this because it happens often. I have one customer that and this is an apartment community or an apartment management company. I manage, I'll say over 20 properties here for them in the metropolitan area of Georgia. But she reached out to me about a week and a half ago and told me, Marcello, I just bought a property in the outskirts of Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and your property or your company purchased that the previous company, and I'm
Uh-huh.
and I'm challenged with reaching who I need to talk to. Can you help me with that?
Mm-hmm.
I was in luck. I knew the director of that region, so I reached out
Mm-hmm.
directly and we had a conversation. And I asked her, "Is it possible for me to manage this for them, for me to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that that transition is smooth?" I'm waiting to hear back because I would rather follow that entire process, regardless if there's a monetary compensation. Because I think about the entire big picture. Who cares if I get paid on that transaction? The person trusts me enough
Mm-hmm.
to ask me for help. So I want to continue work on that down that path. Now, chances are, because it's a different division, I may not be able to manage that or go through the process that ultimately I wanted to go, and that's
Okay.
this at this point. I'll make it clear to that representative of what I expect for my customers' experience at that location, and I would
Ooh.
set the expectation for them. And I'll go as far to say, you know what? Once you send me all the documentation, you'll get paid. That's fine, but let her continue dealing with me, and I'll be essentially her liaisons. And at the end of the day, most of those representatives, they don't, not within my company, but they already have a lot on their plate already. So if I'm
Uh-huh.
saying, let me take on the responsibility, you just have to process the paperwork. Many of times they'll take a big breather and say, perfect. I love that. Here's the paperwork. Once it's completed, send it back. I'll process it. So I'll manage the entire process, even though I have nothing to do.
Okay, so I have to say to you, you do a lot of detailed work. You're sending out newsletters, you're sending out anniversary messages, messages, like you are keeping up with everything.
Yeah.
You're smart, but you're not that smart. How are you keeping that track of all of this stuff? I know you have a system that you use.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I use different software. There's a company called Close that I use. That's CLOCE. Um,
Hmm.
and the neat thing about that is that software that I'm using works with Salesforce, which is a platform, another CRM that I use within our company that
Uh-huh.
our relationship. But the benefit of this application is scans my emails, and based on the dialogue in the email, it would reach out back to me and say, "Hey, Marcello, your email 2 days ago said that you was going to follow up with Bob today, and it will pop up. So when I wake up in the morning, it will say,
Wait, so close does that?
yes, close does that because it scans the email and
Okay.
it'll
So
let me.
spell that again. I want to put it in the chat here. What is
It,
that?
it's close, CLOZE.
ZE. I thought you said ZE.
Yeah, ZE, like zebra. Yep.
Okay. And what is that, .com or what is that?
I believe it's .com. Or if you type in that as CRM in Google, it'll come up.
Okay.
I do want to let's set the expectation to folks. It's not a cheap service, but it really comes down to. I'm gonna finish this thought, and I'm gonna go back to cheap. Okay, because
Okay.
I'll talk about that, right? Um, so the other thing that it does too is that you go into that program and say you have different classifications. So if you have an initial meeting with a person and you're going through the discovery process, you could
Mm-hmm.
during this process, I want to be reminded to follow up with Coach Erica every 3 days, every 5 days, every 10 days to keep
Mm-hmm.
the conversation going. Or if there's an existing customer, now I just want to follow up every month, every 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you think is whatever cadence you want, you can set that up. It automatically scans the internet. So if the person's email, telephone number is out there, it will bring up all their social media information and link it to it for me automatically. And then another benefit is if I've never met them before, it will scan that information and put their image in the contact. So before they
Wow.
how they look.
Wow. And you know what? A picture says 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Right. It tells you, if they're kind of warm and friendly or they're kind of stiff and conservative.
Mhm.
Or maybe they have pink hair. Who knows? But
Hey, you never know.
that's right. But it really tells you kind of what their vibe is.
Hmm.
I like it. I like it. So when you say not cheap, what's not cheap to you? Is it, cheap to
Yeah,
somebody else? What does that look like? Is it like $300 a
can
year,
can
$200 a
be.
year?
It can be depending on the tier that you're at. It can. I believe depending on what tier, it starts anywhere by about 250, and then depending on the tiers that you want to go into, it could get as much as $500 per year. Mind you, they even have features now. They updated it recently. That what's the thing called like Mailchimp, these things that people use for marketing. They
Uh-huh.
incorporated these services now. They recently updated it. So if you want to go like the platinum tier, you can get some of those options built in. Like if you want to do like a monthly newsletter, it can
Uh-huh.
provide templates for you to do that.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah,
That saves like a lot of effort though. That's a time saver.
yeah, that's correct. Now, I
Mhm.
go to the cheap aspect of it. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine most recently, and she asked me because I use another service called Grammarly, and that's a great service.
Okay.
Anyone,
Yeah.
you Google it, look into it. I subscribe to that feature, and I mean, given that I mentioned Grammarly, I'll just say it's just what it does that it tweaks your correspondence either via text, email, or even when you're writing an article, and it, depending on how you want to communicate, because you can say you want to be analytical, you want to be casual, you want to be business, and there's the other ways you could tweak it, and it can make recommendations to change the words that you use to be more
Mhm.
effective in your communication. So I digress on that point. Now the purpose of what I was bringing that up is that I was using Grammarly, and my friend was seeing me using that, and she asked me, "So why are you using Grammarly?" I said, "Well, rather than I already had the email typed. So I just took it into Grammarly and asked Grammarly to look at it and scan it and make suggestions how I can make it more impactful. So
Mhm.
he asked me, so why are you doing that? I said, well, I can sit back and reread it and read it again. And we have done this before and read it. I don't know how many times you're gonna read it to see how impactful it is. That's cost that is time. Okay.
Right.
But given that said, now everyone, if you want, just get it. If you have a piece of paper in front of you, go right ahead and do that. Put a piece of paper and write on. You put in the X section. We're gonna do X and Y. So in the X section, you could say your time is worth this. So it could be. Let's use a
Mhm.
very number, $1,000, right?
Okay.
My time per hour is worth $1,000 an hour. Let's use that as an example. Now
Okay.
the Y is the task that I'm doing every single time, every day. It could be writing an article, writing an email, following up with customers. right? These are tasks. My
Mhm.
goal is to keep the time that is going to take for me to do these tasks as low as possible, because
Mhm.
tasks that I need to do is getting close to how much my time is worth. I have to really qualify if this makes sense for me to invest this time.
Mhm.
Why I could justify paying for services like clothes, Grammarly, and many other, because they could reduce the time that it takes for me to do these rudimentary tasks or cyclical tasks for that matter, because these are tasks I'm going to be doing on a regular basis. So rather than actually start reinventing a wheel every single time,
Mhm.
it streamlines the process. So I could justify the expense. And I think that only individuals that are watching this video now, they're listening to my voice, that have reached a certain level in their career could
Uh-huh.
buy that. And they could definitely nod their heads like, yeah, I'm with you. But individuals that are not there, not necessarily financially, but just career wise, could say, no, I can't justify to pay that. I don't mind writing an article. So some of the stuff that I've said thus far may not resonate. And if it doesn't, that's fine. Please reach out to me, because I encourage for you to connect with me, because I like to challenge your thinking. So,
Ah.
yeah,
Okay. So, I love you and your gadgets.
thank
Give
you.
us yeah, give us, I know you got clothes and I know you got Grammarly. I know you got some other software that you've been using. Give me a few more cuz I like that stuff. What do you got? You're muted. What happened?
So, am I
There
there?
you go.
Yeah, what happened? Do you still see my video? Okay, there it
Well, I
is.
see. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
I just got I was getting a call there a moment ago. Now let me think about what other software that I'm using right now. I'm trying to remember what I've been using now that I can mention. Huh.
Think
Uh,
about it and get back to me because I want
yeah,
to ask
I
you.
can.
I want to
Yeah, I
ask
can.
you another
Go ahead.
question because I noticed that you moved a lot of your time from LinkedIn to Clubhouse, and I'm curious how many people followed you from LinkedIn, and I'm curious how many new relationships have you been able to obtain from like Clubhouse, the Clubhouse setting.
Well, that's I'm glad you asked that question, because yeah, I've gained quite a bit of followers on Clubhouse, but I will say that the relationships that I have in LinkedIn, that has that it's kind of weird to say follow me there, but yeah, but that's the way to say it. They follow me to Clubhouse. It allowed us to either have continue the conversation, because it was easier, because there was no video, and then
Mm-hmm.
you could just jump on, or it was easier to consume. So they joined more in my rooms. They when I met with them, they were more inclined to have, they were more receptive. So I say that to say is that Clubhouse has allowed. I want to probably wrap up what I'm saying by or get into my point. That Clubhouse has allowed me to augment my existing relationships on LinkedIn, and it
Okay.
actually allowed to further strengthen our bond. And I'll give you an example to support this. I have a company that I work with that we just recently just onboarded. It's a company called Stay Mobile. You can look them up.
Okay.
They most recently consolidated several of their locations here in Metro Atlanta to one huge facility.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I typically say, a little birdie told me that they were moving into this site. So I went and introduced myself and met with the key stakeholders, and determined that it was going to be a good fit. On one of my visits, I was visiting the stakeholder. A person just came out the blue. As I'm walking in the door, I don't recognize him from Adam. And
Mm-hmm.
he comes up and said, "Hey, Marcello, how you doing?" I'm looking at him. I'm like, "Do I know him?" And he says, "Man, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn." I said, "Do you? Thank you so much. I appreciate that." Well, obviously you work in and stay mobile. I'm curious to know what is it that you saw on LinkedIn that resonated with you. I love your cocktails with cello and your coffee with cellos. I love those in-depth conversations. So as he continued talking, I realized, aha, I remember I sent your connection request, and I said, you live in Cummings, Georgia. Is that right? He said, yeah, that's me. I said, okay, yeah, great. So I'm glad that you like that. Then we started talking. Then I shared a little bit of my philosophy about cultivating relationships. And now I'm going to ask you at the end, when we wrap up, ask me that question, like, what are the things that I do consistently to cultivate those relationships or reignite those relationships? So I'll touch on that at the end, okay? So,
Okay.
yeah, so needless to say, uh, Clubhouse and LinkedIn, these are areas that I'm able to organically bump into individuals and customers. And I encourage people to constantly find a cadence that works for them or create a cadence that works for them and find a way to continue to provide unique content here on LinkedIn or any other platform that your customers are at. And because this is a way that you can organically bump into them. I said that earlier, I said it again. Rather than sending them the proverbial email, hey, Coach Erica, here it comes, here it comes. I'm just, and you hear this in quotes, I'm just sending this email, and here it goes again, to touch base.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we
So,
touching base?
what
Don't
do
you
you
already
want?
know? We both know why we talked originally. I know your pain points. You know how I can help. Touching base is a waste of time. So,
Right.
so if you need to follow up and ask me if you want to ask me about that, we could talk about that rather than touching base. But creating content that answers this person's needs,
Mm-hmm.
create that content, and don't send emails saying I'm just calling to touch base. What are their pain points?
There you
Research the
go.
topic, write an article, and post it. Maybe tag them. Guess what? You might run into someone later and they'll have the same problem or pain point, and you can say, well, Coach Erica, it's funny you bring that up. I wrote an article a few weeks ago that addresses that. Do you mind if I share that article with you?
But you want to know what I have to tell you or remind you how you do it, because you don't just share the article. This is what you do. You do a video that says, "Hey Erica, I noticed you have this concern. I wanted to share this article with you. Check it out and let me know what you think." That is the Marcello slide.
Yeah. And I'll go one step further. I'll When I read that article, I'll find something that I know resonates with them, and I'll point
Okay.
that out. I say, Coach Erica,
Yeah.
I remember what we talked about. That talked about X, and this article actually touches on XYPDQ. They had an interesting take. Do you feel the same way?
Nice, nice, nice with the question. Nice. I like it. I
Shows that
like it.
article. It shows that I actually I can see the connection there, the parallels, and it's not just something I'm just sending just to send for that matter. And then to wrap up, to tie that to that, when it pertains to following up, rather than sending those emails saying, "Hey, I'm sending you this email just to touch base," guess what? If this is a company that is a large organization that they have articles written about them, follow the company, keep
Mm-hmm.
up with what the company is doing, or if they're a smaller company, stay on top of what's happening in their industry. Learn about their changes in their organization or their sector. If you find something that makes sense, if you find an article, then guess what? Read that article. If you find something that's interesting, share it rather than sending an email saying, "Hey, I'm emailing you to touch base. Are you ready for another proposal?" No, that's a waste of.
No, they're not ready for another proposal.
No, send an email saying, "Hey, I just came across this article. Read it. That speaks to what's happening, changes in your industry. Are you aware of this? If so, what are the things that you guys are doing now to implement to ensure that you stay blah 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 blah."
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, first you are following up, so you don't have to.
Right?
You're following up,
Mm-hmm.
touching base, and then last
Mm-hmm.
adding value.
I love it. I love it. And that's one thing I notice about you. You're constantly adding value to whatever environment you're in. That's why you're getting all this free stuff. But
Right.
okay, so we're getting close to wrapping up time. I could probably talk to you about this for quite a few hours, but I want to make sure I'm getting this question answered. How do you deal with no?
Well, it's funny. If I deal with no's, I expect no's, like I mentioned earlier.
Right. And I want to know, but what, because, people are so afraid to make sales calls, or what I would like to say, connection calls, because you're going to hear no. Oh, no, I'm going to hear no.
Well, these are the things that you could do to address no's, right? Um, either you could do several things, but the two things you could do is find out what other companies in that same industry their challenges are. So let's say, for instance, like in my
Ooh, nice.
like I'm actually in a parking lot right now at a liquor store. So it's a retail
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, and their challenges might be similar to like a gas station. So
Okay.
understand what are the challenges that they have, might be able to be a way to come in and provide value or answer any challenges or objections that they might have to do business with you. Mind you, it might still be about price, and that's fine, and you still get that no. So
Mm-hmm.
so if you can still provide value by understanding the challenges that they have, so if they say, well, I'm not interested, that's fine. The reason why I was stopping
Mm-hmm.
because I work with another gas station nearby, because guess what? You did research that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the challenges that they had there, and the reason why they came with us is because of this. I wanted to see if you have the same challenges, and if so, I'd like to see if we can have a discussion around that. Now, okay, they still might say no. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's transactional, meaning that they just want a better price, that's okay. You cannot get every single customer.
Okay.
It may not be it may not be a good fit for you. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Now, didn't you tell me one time that you had a customer that was really based on price, but because you kept solving problems or really informing them, that they actually referred you to somebody versus the person that they were actually dealing with, because they wish they could do with you, but they had a budget.
Hmm. Yeah, what happens is, and it's funny that happens quite more often that but the key thing is that, yeah, what happens is some of these companies that I work with, um, yeah, I make an effort to be as competitive when it pertains to price, but unfortunately, my price is not the cheapest or the least expensive out there, because we are really proud about the services that we provide. However, I understand that sometimes it's not going to be a good fit financially. So, but I still want to help. I really do,
Okay.
and I really do, and it shows not by the holiday email, not
Hmm.
because I know their anniversary. It's because that when I stop in, I talk to you as a friend, and I'm not asking for your business, and I want to, like, what are you doing differently? So much so that I constantly say, consider me as a resource.
Yes, you're getting right down to it.
Consider me as a resource. I mean, I'm in a parking lot right now. I'm like, well, if you need to have your asphalt paved, and the people that you worked with in the past, oh, better, that's why I say, if you exhausted your network of individuals, can reach out to me. You'd be surprised who I know. I mean, most recently,
Mhm.
one of my customers said, I provide trash service for them, right? But they came out
Yeah.
and said, Marcello, you've been asking me this. Consider me as a resource. Consider me as a resource. But you know what? Guess what? I need your help. We got some racks that we need to put up in this warehouse. Do you have someone that can help me install it? Let me find out. I had a couple of folks, but let me find out. I reached out. Guess what? This is the interesting part. 2 days ago, someone reached out to me and said, hey, Marcello, I just got some racks and we installed it. Everything went well, and I love that. And I asked him, can you give me that contact that you work with? 2 days later, after I got that contact, I was able to make a connection. Since then, and this is about 3 months ago, that company that installed those racks at that location
Yeah.
referral, I've been getting leads from that company because guess what? Where that person, excuse me, where that company is installing racks, those typically are customers that I would love to work with because I
That's
especially
amazing.
work with logistical and warehouses. So that was one thing. That's key. And then so actually, and then one more point. Someone that I'm not even doing business with reached out to me 2 weeks ago and said, "Hey, Marcelo, it's funny." He said the same thing. Yes, he said, "You said that you want me to consider you as a resource. I need 100 Gaylord cardboard boxes.
Wow. I
Can you?"
don't even know what that is, but okay.
Yeah, it's these big old boxes, cardboard that you can store stuff. I reached out to different folks and I was able to get him a resource.
That's
But
excellent.
he's not a customer.
I love it. I love it. So you are a wealth of knowledge, but before you go, you have to
I'm
give
leaving.
us.
I'm leaving.
Don't do it. You got to give us, at least your top 5 best practices. If you're going to be in relationship management, not sales,
Yeah.
relationship management, what are 5 things that we have to be doing?
The first thing is staying curious. There's no question about that. Uh, that approach, being curious, allows you to ask more questions. Uh,
Okay.
Rather than when someone says, "Well, we did it this way," but why have you been doing it that way? Okay, does that work? Yeah, okay. And any reason why you guys never considered changing it? Okay, so asking questions because you really want to understand the industry. And I'll give
Mhm.
you an example. I'm working with a company called SP Richards. Uh,
Okay.
Company, they're implementing some a high tech solution within the company. I don't want to talk exactly what they're doing, but I asked so many questions about the technology that at the end of the meeting, the guy said, "I could tell you really want to learn more about what we're doing here. I'm going to send you a link to a video of this X solution because
Wow.
I was really curious. I really wanted to learn more." So he felt
Okay.
it, believed it. The other thing too is treat the customer how you would want to be treated.
Okay.
It is a classic approach, regardless about meaning that yes, sometimes you might say, well, I'm not going to make my margins, so I need to, I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to go above and beyond. You know what? I tell you, karma is a beep. So you want to make sure that just doing the right thing, it just the right behaviors works in your favor. Um, the other thing that I will say when it pertains to relationship management is other than after you provide the service that you can provide, follow up. I'm in
Okay.
the area, like I'm right here. I'm working with this person, right?
Yeah.
That I sold this customer 2 months ago. Does it hurt to stop in and stop in like, hey Peter, how you doing? I'm actually working with the company next door. We haven't talked in a while. How are things going? And you walk in, you chat. You know what happens? I'll be honest with you. You know what happens?
What happens?
I open a can of worms.
Right?
Either
Okay.
they don't understand their bill. Uh, it could be anything, whatever it might be. And I open a can of worms. But guess what? When I decide to walk through that door, it's because I'm willing and able to help, no matter what is behind that door.
Okay, that's
That's
awesome.
another thing. It's accountability. And
Oh, I like that. I like that.
yeah, that's the key. Just doing that. I'm actually not too far from right across from the train is about to leave right now. So sorry about that. Another thing too, I would suggest when it comes down to relationship management is going deep and wide. Okay, you got one person within a relationship, right? Within a company.
Okay.
Why stop there? Why not meet and try to be the the dishwasher? Why not meet the night clerk? Why not meet this other person? Because then what happens? Then you continue having that relationship with that person, but then you have other relationships with other individuals. And organic, not even organically, just naturally, Peter is gonna say Bob, your customer, like, hey, I just ran into Marchello the other day. Man, he was telling me XYZ PDQ, whatever it is. You're further strengthening that relationship because someone else is bragging about you or talking about you, whatever that might be. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
having great conversations. Yeah, and I say, then lastly is being genuine, and and and
Uh,
and these things. I'm sorry to say, it seems corny and seems obvious,
yeah.
but a lot of people don't approach that. A lot of people don't actually be genuine. You know,
Yeah.
but put their best foot forward and just do it. That's really what it comes down. Just being genuine, and mind you, at the end of the day, if even if what I'm saying doesn't resonate with you, and you're listening to my voice here, reach out to me, connect with me. I'd be more than happy to sit down and virtually and talk to you on the phone. Ask, if you have a question with sales or challenges on different approaches. I love to talk about that. I mean, so much so that I have a friend in Canada that she has a very unique business, but she still has to do sales. And we're talking. I'm like, well, I'm curious to know, how do you onboard a customer? What's your initial questions? How do you determine if that customer is a good fit? And then ultimately, how do you actually move the business along to make sure that it's mutually beneficial? And so I welcome, I mean, literally, anyone that's watching this live or in the replay, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I really,
How can I reach you, Marcello?
what was
How
that?
can I reach you? How
Oh,
can I reach you?
well, you can call me. I'll give you my number. My number is 678-683-9136. That's 678-683-9136. That's my number. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Marchello Arcelay, just like I was spelled in the description of this video. And literally, if you Google me, you'll see my LinkedIn page and all the different videos and my Clubhouse handle. I'm on Clubhouse. It's Cocktails Cello. Cocktails, plural, Cello. And that's my same name on Green Room as well. And so we can connect there as well.
Oh my goodness, what is Green Room? What is that?
So Green Room is very similar to Clubhouse, but is actually brought to you by Spotify.
Oh, okay. You know what? You never cease to amaze me. You always got something else that you're into, right?
Yeah, I
Do you
fit.
do Clubhouse and Green Room at the same time since they're both?
I yes, I am actually because I have a few devices which we already covered earlier. So I'll have one phone in Green Room, and then I'll have the other phone in Clubhouse. And mind you, I'm not having conversations. I'll listen to the conversations, and whenever I see fit, I'll jump in. And it's kind of crazy sometimes. I can listen to probably maybe two conversations at the same time, but
Yeah.
I realize one, I'm not interested too much. I just want to probably just be passive. Then I'll just lower that a little bit more. But yeah,
So, well, no, I'm because with cocktails with cello, I'm curious if you have like a clubhouse room because I've seen you do some crazy stuff. Like you'll you'll have your LinkedIn and your clubhouse going at the same time,
yeah,
all tied in. So I'm just curious if you got like 5 devices and you got your cocktails with cello on Clubhouse, you got your LinkedIn going live, and you got your green room over here, and everybody's all twisted up talking. Is that
yeah,
what you're doing? I'm just curious.
yeah. I've done that before. Yeah, and if you folks that are watching me here and you Google me and or just type my name in YouTube, you'll see my different rooms. You'll see that I'll have the live video on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, but I'll get the audio from Clubhouse and Green Room. So as you and I are talking, you could also hear the dialogue from Green Room or Clubhouse, and we could have a conversation with those folks. We're talking, you and I can see each other. However, we can actually hear them and they can hear us. So it's almost like um, a 2021 version of a call-in show, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so that's essentially,
that's for sure. I have seen I've seen you mix it up, okay? So it's pretty cool.
thank,
Well, everybody, what'd you say, dear?
thank you.
It's awesome. You know what? I think you're amazing. Um, we can all learn so much from you. You do all this stuff, second nature, you
Yeah,
know. Um, you've been in so many different industries. It works across every industry. You definitely have the secret to the sales sauce, relationship sauce.
thank you.
You definitely have. We appreciate you so much. I'll kidnap you again. Thank you for watching, everybody. Bye bye for now.
Bye, guys.